guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Samantha and I am a soon-to-be first-year PA student in Southern California this August. So I make videos here on YouTube to help pre-PA students get a little bit closer to attaining their white coat and hopefully help make the admissions process easier for you guys. So a high school student reached out regarding a project that she's starting on a website for students who are interested in the medical field. And so I have a list of questions here. I decided instead of answering them in written form to make a video about it, because I'm sure if some high school students have these questions, there's probably a ton more of you out there that are curious about these exact things. And so I could post it on YouTube, but then it's also more interactive for those of you who are watching this from her site. I attended California State University, Long Beach, and I graduated in 2019 with a degree in kinesiology. My option was in exercise science. I understood going into my undergraduate career that my grades were critically important in order to get into PA school. And I would say that that's probably the single most important thing when applying to PA school, because if you don't have a competitive GPA, unfortunately, a lot of schools overlook you. And that's just a hard reality. And so going into my undergrad degree, I was fully prepared to make small sacrifices in order to keep my eye on the bigger picture. What this looked like in actuality was perhaps missing a social event on the weekend in order to study for a big physics exam on a Monday. Things like that. Overall, I would say that I was able to balance my social life. I don't think I gave up more than I was willing to in order to perform well. I will say that as you get involved in undergrad, especially when you get involved with extracurriculars and you become a member of your pre-PA club, and as you take on different volunteer opportunities, you'll find that a lot of people that you surround yourself with at that point will be very like-minded, also likely pre-med, pre-PA, that are similarly ambitious and have similar goals as you, and you kind of gravitate towards those people and they become your new social circle. So you don't really give up too much of a social life, you just kind of evolve it into something that's also simultaneously productive, or at least that's what I did or tried to do. My goal is to be a physician assistant, and I'm pretty close. I've jumped over quite a few hurdles and I got into PA school, and so I'm entering my first year of PA school this August. And so now what that looks like is I have 1 year didactic, 1 year clinical in PA school, and then I have to take the PANCE board exam, and then I'm a certified PA. So as far as my goal toward becoming a PA, I'm pretty close, I would say. I've come quite a long way. Other ambitions of mine involve helping pre-PA students get into PA school, building up the future generations of the PA profession, also advocating for women in medicine. I also really want to do work overseas. I would say that those are all things that are a work in progress. There's no linear path with certain ambitions in life. I'm constantly plugging away, if that makes sense. That's a really good question because I honestly am not sure. I shadowed a PA in internal med and I loved internal medicine. I worked in emergency medicine as a scribe and I love emergency medicine so much. I can see myself working there as well. Other areas that I'm really interested in are women's health, but honestly, I love all areas of medicine and I imagine that I'm just gonna be like a fish to water with each one. I just want to immerse myself in all different specialties, and I'm sure once I do my rotations, I'll find something that really sticks. But for right now, there's not one that I'm 100% certain on. The medical school process, I can't speak to too much because I'm not going into medical school. I can talk about the PA school process. So like I mentioned, PA school, it's 1 year didactic and that is book work. And then it's 1 year clinical rotations and you do about 6 to 8 rotations, I want to say. And then you have 1 or 2 elective rotations. And then there are some residencies available for PA students at this time. It's not commonplace. My understanding of medical school, just based on what I know from friends and my husband and things like that, is that it's 2 years of book work, similar to didactic year in PA school, just more spread out, and then 2 years of clinical rotations, and then from there you have 3 to 7 years of residency, and then I believe you can go into your fellowship afterwards. They're both under the medical model, but they're just in a different time frame. So PA school is much quicker, medical school is just a little bit more spread out. You really get into the finer details of the subjects that you're studying. So I'm not a PA yet, but from my understanding, just shadowing PAs, it will vary depending on your specialty and the state in which you work. From my observations, a PA will go in to see a patient, gather the chief complaint or gather the history of present illness, perform physical examinations, order any relevant lab or imaging that might be indicated and interpret those results, and then they can create treatment plans and prescribe medications as indicated for the patient as well. And so PAs really have the ability to work in a variety of specialties, different settings. They can work in surgery, they can work in outpatient care, inpatient care. There's such a broad range of what PAs can do and are capable of. I would say do your research in the state that you're interested in working in and see how PAs are utilized in practice and what it is they can do, because it really ranges from state to state and from specialty to specialty, but that's just a general overview of what a PA does. If you're hesitant to go into medicine, my first question is why? Is it because you don't know which career in medicine might be the one for you? Because if that's the case, then I recommend just doing your research and shadowing MDs, NPs, PAs, seeing if what they do is compatible and conducive with your own objectives as a future provider. If your reason for being hesitant has to do with your fear of not being good enough or not knowing where to start, because for both medical school and PA school, there's so many different requirements and it can be so daunting and overwhelming, and you might say like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know where to get patient care or volunteer or shadowing. I don't know which classes to take. The first thing is just relax and realize that the most daunting things are accomplished with just one simple step in the right direction. I had the mentality that if there was one small thing that I did to become a competitive applicant to get closer to applying to PA school, then I would just do that one little thing. And if that's reaching out to a PA to see if they would accept me in for shadowing hours, if that was applying to a job as a scribe, if that was registering for classes that would allow me to apply to one additional program, then that would be what I would do in one day. So just take it one small step at a time. Find a mentor, somebody who's able to guide you in the right direction, preferably someone that's been through the process before. This is one thing that I don't think a lot of people really appreciate, is that if you're pursuing something and you don't have imposter syndrome or, you know, a feeling as if you're a little bit over your head and you're not really quite sure if you've got what it takes, but you think you do, if you don't have a little bit of imposter syndrome with what you're trying to do in life, you're probably not pushing yourself far enough. So keep those things in mind. Don't be hesitant. Just figure out which career path is the one for you and then do little steps to completing it. I chose to pursue a career in medicine because I have a very overt interest in science, and I really wanted a career where I can apply my knowledge of the sciences into something that would benefit people in the long run. You know, my parents have really awesome providers, but they struggle with their chronic conditions and they struggle with things like obesity and metabolic syndrome and things like that. So I tried my best to get them to stop smoking, for example, and they would eventually stop smoking, but I couldn't address their habitual behavior in other aspects in life. And I could see that day-to-day behaviors and choices really make an impact long-term, and I wanted to have the knowledge base to address these issues and help people improve their quality of life by using the sciences, using the medical model, using all of these different things that I would be taught both in undergrad but also in PA school, and have the opportunity to apply them into the real world and help people make lasting changes in their lives. And I'm also really honored to be pursuing a career whereby I'm gonna be involved with people's most vulnerable moments in life. Having the opportunity to be that for somebody else and share in that human experience is such an honor, and I couldn't think of anything more fulfilling than being a part of that. So that's what led me to pursuing a career in medicine. It's all a matter of prioritization. You have to figure out what is worth spending your time doing in undergrad. For me, that was studying and working and gathering volunteer experience and giving back to my community. And so if that meant not watching TV, I just didn't watch TV, and I didn't miss it because I was doing things that, yeah, kept me busy, and I had long days a lot of the time. You know, I had 16-hour days sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. It was hard work and it was pretty relentless. It was day in and day out. But it was all things that I loved and that just kept me motivated and drove me forward. And so I didn't mind doing it. It was a privilege. Other things I recommend doing in order to manage time in undergrad is not to procrastinate for examinations. So I studied for my exams probably about a week and a half at least before an exam actually took place. I made sure I gave myself ample time to study and to really reintroduce the material. This also helped with stress a lot because it's stressful cramming the night before or 2 days before an exam. It's not recommended and you don't perform well, and so you get more stressed out because you're not doing well in the class. So don't do that to yourself. Give yourself at least a week and a half to study for your exams before, at least a week. Give yourself at least a week to prepare for your exams before they actually take place. This will ease a lot of anxiety. Sort of piggybacking off of that, as far as how I manage stress, I personally love working out, so I would work out at least 5 days a week, even if that meant being on the elliptical while reading a textbook. I would just get moving. It helped me break up the long study days and helped me refocus so that I can continue to put effort in towards my studies and not feel gassed out. I also recommend getting outside when you can. That really helped. And also using different meditation apps. I used Headspace a lot, and that's like a 10-minute long meditation, and I would do it literally in my car. I would just lean back in my car and just put my headphones in and do a 10-minute meditation. I would feel like refreshed and ready for my shift at night in the ED. So I recommend doing that. Those are definitely ways to keep motivated and not get gassed out or stressed out by your academic load. There are a lot of pressing topics in our healthcare system today, unfortunately. That's so difficult. I would say working in the ED, I saw a lot of patients coming back with exacerbations of their chronic medical conditions, which is something that I've discussed on my channel in depth. So if a patient's coming in with high blood pressure, and they always come in with high blood pressure, and it's just a constant thing, and they know they should take their medications, but they don't. And they keep coming back to the ED in this hypertensive emergent state. For me, as a future provider, I'm looking at where the communication barrier is and how to bridge the gap in communication between patient and provider and say, okay, why are you not compliant with that medication? Is it because you can't afford your prescriptions on a monthly basis, which is a whole other conversation as far as the insurance in the US medical system. Maybe they can't afford their medication. Maybe they don't understand why they take their medication, because a lot of people might be asymptomatic if they have higher blood pressure because they're used to it, and they don't realize that this is actually a problem long term and that they should be taking their medications to prevent certain poor outcomes like strokes or things of that nature. So I think one thing that I'm driven towards in the medical system is bridging the gap in communication between patient and provider. This also includes things like obesity and the lack of physical activity within our populations and substance abuse. I know that there's a huge stigma having, family members who have struggled with substance abuse. I see how difficult it is to ask for help, and then when people finally do ask for help, how they're not given the help that they need necessarily. It's almost like the medical system plays hot potato with these patients and says, okay, you deal with it. I don't know what to do with this patient. I can't help them. So reducing the stigma with things like addiction, I think, is incredibly important in our current medical system. And there are a lot. I can go on and I'll list a little bit, and if you'd like to research that on your own time, you can feel free to do that. It's something that would be a separate video in its own right, and perhaps I'll make that one day as well. But those are just a few things that come to mind right off the bat. Well, the negative aspects of medicine, I think, were spoken of in the previous question, but there are certainly other aspects that are a little bit negative or could be improved, I would say. One of them that can be improved is how PAs are utilized in practice. Specifically for PAs, there's not a lot of advocacy. There's not a lot of uniformity in how we're utilized in practice from state to state, from hospital to hospital. It really varies. I think going forward, we need to advocate for ourselves as future PAs and figure out how we're utilized in practice and expand the role of PA. As I said before, I really think it's a balance between finding uniformity in how we're utilized in practice and stifling what it is a PA is capable of and what they can do. And so I don't know where the balance lies with that. I don't have an answer, but that's something that I'm actively working towards. And I imagine once I'm actually a practicing PA and I have a seat at the table of hospital committees, then I'll be able to speak on this a bit more. But that's just one thing that comes to mind. As much as I'd love to say that we live in a world where men and women are equal and we're viewed the same, this is just not the reality that we live in. And I think in order to make change, you have to acknowledge the reality in which you find yourself. There's no need to be resentful or frustrated. Just acknowledge it and learn to navigate within this world and move it forward in the right direction, given the certain set of cards that you have. With that said, I've heard from practicing PAs who have had PA students who are male come in and they are doing a rotation at their site, and they go in to see a patient, and because the actual practicing PA who is certified is female, they get overlooked and they get mistaken for the student, whereas the PA student who is male is thought to be the practicing PA. And these things happen all the time. They're little tiny oversights of our patient population and even the medical staff at times. I've even had a PA friend of mine who's an awesome PA provider in emergency medicine get told by a patient that he doesn't think women should be practicing medicine. And she said, okay, that's fine, you can see the doctor and then that's it. You don't have to see me. You're just gonna have to wait another few hours probably to see the doctor. But that's fine. You have the right to decline care from me if that's what you believe. And I have no right to enforce myself on your care. So I think I am intent on advocating for women in medicine and performing my job well and with integrity and being somebody that patients leave feeling like they could not have been handled any better if I were a man or a doctor or anyone else. I want them to leave the room feeling like they were heard, they were taken care of, they were not seen by somebody who's shortcutting or who is less than or who is incapable. That's my intent. You are representing the profession and representing women well in medicine, then you are doing everything you need to be doing. So I will say that fortunately, the fact that I'm a woman has no bearing whatsoever on my decision to become a PA. I think while there is certain stereotypes within the patient population or even within the medical staff at hospitals, and that's just a reality in which we have found ourselves in, and that's just how it is. Fortunately, there's equal opportunity for women in medicine than there is for men. There's no red tape. At the end of the day, I had no problem getting into a PA school as a female. And as far as the little judgments that you might find, and that you probably will find as a woman in medicine, as far as with patients or with the medical staff, if you're having integrity and representing the profession well, I don't think it's gonna matter that you're a woman or a man in medicine. I think it's just all about how you handle that in your profession and how you handle that going forward in your career. Honestly, motivation is such a fleeting thing that I don't think it's something that should determine whether or not you study or go to work that day. I don't think that that's the best way to approach life. I think you do things because you have a bigger picture in mind, or you do things thinking of others. An example of this would be just recently I ran with my niece. She biked next to me as I was running, and she's not used to biking long distances or anything like that, but we biked in a park. It's just a straight linear bike path. We were gonna go 2 miles one way, 2 miles back. By the 3rd mile, she was gassing out. And I said, Ava, you can do it. Like you're almost there. And I was saying, listen, you should do one thing a day that pushes you and is difficult, but at the end of it, when you do it, you feel a sense of accomplishment with that thing. And so we did it. We did the 4 miles, and she was really excited about it. Well, the next day, my twin sister and I did the same path. She biked, I ran, and she wanted to go 10 miles. So 5 miles down, 5 miles back. And I'd run long distances before, so it was fine. But the truth is, at mile 8, I was like, this is too much. Why am I doing this? This is crazy. But I thought, okay, I could give up now. That would be great if I could just walk the last 2 miles. But how can I be an inspiration for my niece if I stop at mile 8? She didn't stop. And she didn't stop because I told her she can do it. And she trusts me and she looks up to me. If I tell her to keep going, then I'm not stopping at mile 8. I'm gonna go mile 10 and I'm gonna make my last 2 miles my fastest, because that's who I want her to see me as. I think if you find motivations for other people, it will push you farther along. Translating this over to medicine, I thought of my future patients and the patients that are struggling right now with managing their chronic conditions, that are obese, that are struggling with addiction, things like that, and how as a future provider, I'm intent on helping them past it and helping them navigate through these difficult parts of life and come through on the other side for a better quality of life. That's my goal, that's my ambition, and that's what keeps me going. late nights studying in the library. That's what keeps me going to work after a long day of classes. That's what keeps me volunteering on the weekends when I could have had a day off. And that's what keeps me motivated. It has nothing to do with me and, you know, becoming a PA and getting a good paycheck. That's not what's going to keep me up late nights. And no, it's 100% the people that I'm going to be helping in the future. I love running, as I've mentioned. I love traveling. So my husband and I traveled to Zion National Park in Colorado and New Zealand during my gap year before I start didactic year. And I also love photography and videography, hence why I'm making a video right now. And I just recently picked up guitar again. So those are my interests outside of medicine, which, by the way, I really think it's important to have interests outside of medicine and just enjoy all that life has to offer outside of medicine and within medicine as well. I think that's super important. So that's a good question. Thank you for that. Initially, when I was considering a career in medicine, I was going to go the dental hygiene route because I really liked the emphasis on patient education that that career had to offer. I was doing a lot of the prerequisites that are required for PA school my first year of college because a lot of those prerequisites are also needed for dental hygiene. And coincidentally enough, I met my husband the summer before my first year of college. He was in residency at the time. So I would be studying for like an anatomy exam and he would be reviewing the top 10 chief complaints in emergency medicine. I would find myself asking him questions about medical decision making and different pathologies and different diagnostic tests and things like that, and I would pick his brain for hours about everything he was learning and what he was writing about. I quickly realized that I have a very overt interest in clinical medicine, and he's the one that introduced me to PAs. So I would pick their brain, I would shadow PAs, I would really put the profession into context and then immerse myself in the PA profession, whether it be in conferences or through the AAPA membership program, and really get a sense of what PAs do. And I realized that this is the career for me, and it's been deep and narrow ever since. And yeah, I wouldn't change my decision for the world. And I have a video about why PA on my YouTube channel that goes into depth about this a bit more than I will right now. So if you want to watch that, it'll give you a really good sense of why I chose PA specifically and what I plan to do as a future PA. Ethics in medicine is one of those things that I really love because it shows the complexity of the human condition and life in general, and it really shows how things are not black and white. This is what medicine is founded on: doing no harm, having the best interest of the patient in mind, making decisions for the patients with the consideration of their ability as an autonomous human being to have a say in how they're cared for and what treatments they undergo, practicing medicine in a way that upholds the patient's level of respect and things of that nature. This topic is something that was super interesting to me when it came time to prepare for my PA school interviews, and I think I'm going to do a separate video all about medical ethics because it's something that I could speak about for hours on end, and it is probably not the time to be divulging into this particular topic in this video, but I will link a book that I recommend if you're just doing research on medical ethics that I really found interesting and I think is a great place to start as far as learning about medical ethics in general. Don't waste your time comparing yourself to others. The medical school process and the pre-PA process are both incredibly competitive, and a lot of people fall into the traps of comparing what they got on a test to somebody else who's pursuing the same career path, or their patient care experience hours with somebody else. And I would say, don't waste your time doing that. Just go narrow, go deep, focus on what you're doing, and support those around you who are pursuing the same career path, because these are the people that you will be working with in the future. If you just lean on one another and support them in their own personal journey, it will make the entire process so much better and more wonderful. I promise you. Like, the people that were in the pre-PA club with me are people that I've invited to my wedding. They're people that I talk to this day and hang out with, and we celebrate each other's successes, and it has made all the difference. So that is my final word of advice. Okay, so that is it for this video. Those are all the questions that I received. I want to say thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you guys found it helpful. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. Just DM me and I will be sure to get back to you. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching. Keep working hard out there, and I will see you in the next video.